Okay, I'm going to talk about what it means to spot mistakes in Marvel Rivals or in hero based shooters in general, but we're going to focus on Marvel Rivals today. Uh, I'm a Psylocke player. Assassins, flankers especially, are exceptionally well at spotting someone who makes a mistake and punishing them very quickly for it. Um, a mistake can be a lot of things. It can be a standing out of position, it can be a misuse of abilities, it could be not it could be staggering and trickling out, which I've done another video on. So specifically here, I'm going to go over a um a game that I had. This is about GM3, GM2, somewhere around that range. And we lost the first round. We managed to come back in the second round. But after the first round, my team was just heavily complaining about this Namor that kept flanking, right? And to me, I heard that, and the reason why he was flanking was that it was effective. So once I heard that, I'm like, oh, this guy probably is just going to keep repeating that pattern because that's what's been working for him. So he thinks it's going to still work. And then once I heard that information after the first round, I was like, I'm going to punish him for that. So here's the game starting. Doctor Strange wants to portal onto the point in order to get us there and get start taking space sooner, which is a decent, fair idea. I'm cloaking in. I've got my ult. Now, I'm not dashing in there. I'm a flanker. I'm not the first one to engage. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to try and pressure them out while shooting to reduce my cooldowns on my cloak and uh, and just sort of keep an eye out for that flanks, right? Because we already have the space. We're already pushing them back. We have overall control over the objective. Strange walks up and dies. Don't really know how. That was a mistake on his part. He overextended, right? But here I look and I see, oh, there's that Namor. And then I look and I see the Venom backing up. I know now that this Namor is heavily out of position. He has nobody there to back him up, and he is now surrounded by the rest of us. He was getting away with it in the first round, so he's thought that he is going to continue to get away with it. So I cloak in, I dive in on him. I know I didn't see or hear him use the jump pad. So his one defensive ability that he has to keep himself alive, he used to get up there. So now that I know that, even though I only have one dash, I can play aggressive as I have the advantage at closing the distance and killing him up close, which is exactly what I do, right? That's what it means to spot a mistake, right? Namor is incredibly powerful at flanking. He's incredibly powerful at sort of like poking and anti dive once he gets set up, right? If you don't notice him, he's very powerful in that aspect. But if you notice him and you don't give him time to set up, he can't do a whole lot. And knowing that he had one defensive ability and his team is nowhere to be found, he's far out of position. This means he's a free kill for me, right? And with Strange already being down, my team had the advantage up at the front already, so I didn't need to do anything to help them and back them up. So here I go. Now that we already have the point and everything, I'm looking and just regrouping with my team, waiting to see if someone makes a mistake, right? So here we see Venom move in, right? He's out of position. He doesn't have his E. He swings in for whatever reason. He's not there. He's not surrounded by his team. We kill him. Luna ults and doesn't isn't able to save him. I think Luna was on damage boost here, so Strange died. But that one really wasn't a mistake on Strange's part as much as it was Luna's for being on damage boost. So here's where you see how I'm playing patiently, right? I'm not trying to force anything to happen. I don't need to. We already have control of the point. If I die now, that would be a huge mistake and it would make my team fight a 6v5. So all I'm doing is just shooting with my team and trying to find off angles when I can or waiting to see who steps out of place. So people die, right? So here I notice that we took out both supports. And then I see squids on the left side there, and I know I can hear Namor's footsteps, right? So I cloak to fake that I'm backing out to go back into that room where he is isolated. Why? Because I know that he doesn't have his supports. Once again, he is constantly stepping out of position away from his team and away from his supports. I recognize that he is very used to the fact that people don't punish him for this, and he tries to get away with it too often. So he uses his one defensive ability, right? Now, He was the only person on the enemy team that was ever actually doing anything effective throughout all of the rounds. So after I marked him, marking him means specifically focusing him so you don't allow him to play the game. So that way the rest of your team can fight the rest of the everyone else. Uh, Once I mark him, I specifically am just trying to shut him down the rest of the game. If I shut him down, we win the game. Like if you're ever playing a game and you notice someone on the enemy team is like 11-1 at the after the first round, that's the person you focus. That's the person you keep an eye out for. Even if you don't kill them, all you have to do is make sure that they are not allowed to just get away with what they've been doing. So that's what I was doing here with in this game with him, keeping an eye out for him. And because of the fact that I knew that he didn't have his defensive ability up, I could solo ult him and kill him. Now, this wasn't necessarily the best ult in the world because of the fact that they did have a strange TP, but a solo ult isn't a bad thing necessarily if you get the kill because of the fact that they're still going to be fighting this fight as a 6v5 or for a 6v5 in our favor. So here I'm coming back in and I know Namor's not back yet. So I'm going to try and kill people as fast as possible while we have the advantage. Rocket's amplifier is a huge damage boost. If you have if you only have like a tank that's within your immediate range, that's still okay to focus because of the fact that the damage boost basically turns these tanks into squishies. Like Psylocke is not really great at like uh, dishing out a lot of damage at times, but with a rocket amplifier, everything becomes squishy, right? After I kill him, I know they have a rocket. I was hoping to like stop the res, but I couldn't find it. So I'm immediately going for rocket next because he's a support that's keeping everyone up and he's squishy. I saw him use his rocket dash, which means that he probably doesn't have another one left. And I want to capitalize on that the moment that I see them use it, right? Because if I go and I just get distracted and I start shooting the next guy, by the time I see rocket again, he's going to have another rocket dash. So I look at him, no rocket dash, he's dead, right? Every single time you see someone use an ability, that's an ability that they don't necessarily have, like, to fight back with. Um, and one less ability for them that doesn't amount to a kill or doesn't amount to anything, especially if they're using it on the defensive, means that you can use your abilities then to play defensively or play offensively. And that reminds me, I'm going to go back to that Namor thing real quick to show you how um, I avoided making a mistake myself. So here's where I ulted, right? When I ult, see how I ulted specifically knowing I had one dash available to me, right? I cancel my ult early, I dash out. This is another thing. When you enter into a fight, you need to not just be thinking to yourself, how do I get into the fight, but how do I get out? And you should always be thinking about how do you get out of a fight through the use of your own abilities, not through the use of like your heals or your tank or whatnot. There are occasionally times where you will make a mistake, and your supports and tanks are there to help back you up in case you do make that mistake. But it shouldn't be required because every time you take heals or resources away from everyone else because you made a mistake, that means that they aren't able to use those abilities to play offensively. Understand that? Like abilities used to save people are helpful, but it also means that it puts you at a little bit of a disadvantage in that you can't then use those abilities to get a kill, to take those objectives. So every time you make a mistake and you get bailed out and you're like, where's my heals? Where's my shield? Where's this? If you expect that, you are a hindrance to your team because I don't want to have to use my bubble to save you. I would rather use my bubble as like Magneto or something to enable you when you play offensively. Because if I have to use my resources in order to keep you alive, it means I can't use my resources to try and secure kills. So, same for heals and everything else. Don't put yourself in a position where you weren't thinking about how you could get out of it on your own. Like, it's great when your team can back you up, but you should ultimately be thinking to yourself, like, okay, if I engage here, what's my exit strategy? How can I get out? Because the answer isn't just my team should be healing me or should be shielding me or whatever else. Like, uh, anything past like what is you know basically expected, right? So we'll fast forward again here. Let's see. Yeah, right around here. Yep, just killed the rocket. Now it's just cleanup, right? This right there, another mistake. The whole team, his whole team, like is still coming out of spawn. Why is he trying to survive? Why is he trying to stay alive any longer? that Strange should have just seen that the fight was over and just died. Like there's no reason that he should have been out there. So that's a mistake on his part. And here once again, I'm coming back up. I don't have my ult. I'm trying to cloak in. I thought Namor was going to keep walking forward, so I miss. And watch what happens. This is me recognizing I've made a mistake. I need to leave. I double dash to safety because of the fact that there is a Bucky there, and I'm dashing to my team, which is right into the LOS of the enemy. And he's got pull. There's a lot of damage that could come from there that could kill me instantly. So I use both of my dashes to retreat after I realize that I've made a mistake and I've missed my shots. It is better to survive when you realize that you're not going to secure the kill and you're not confident that you will, and just get out and get yourself back to a better position to where you can try again after your cooldowns have come back up. So part of recognizing and capitalizing when other people make mistakes also means recognizing your own mistakes and trying to immediately put yourself into a better situation. I recognize that right there, staying any longer than I had to was just going to put me at risk. And if I die and they take the point, that's on me, especially the first person to die. You do not want to be the first person to die in a team fight, because then that means that you put your team at a heavy disadvantage. So here I get out, and all I do is I just spam. I'm spamming my left clicks and my right clicks in order to reduce my cooldowns and get ult charge up for the next fight. Right now, I see Venom engaging, and I know that means, because I've been ult tracking, that Venom has his ult. He's going to want to dive on us. Namor has his ult. Like, there's a lot of enemies that have their ults because of the fact that I haven't seen them use it. So now I am recognizing that I don't want to get caught in a mistake of being near my teammates when this happens. Because as you can see, the moment I get out of there, the moment we start to hear their ultimates combine on top of each other. And right there as well, you're going to see that I got out. But all that damage and all that pressure has put my team at a heavy disadvantage. And now, because of the fact that I start to get focused, I'm taking a lot of damage fighting a tank, and I can't kill the tank anyway, right? Like, he popped a Z, but I'm probably not going to be able to kill his tank, especially because of the fact that my teammates just took a crap ton of damage. Everybody needs health right now. Everybody needs to be able to get out. I have a lot of mobility, and I have my abilities to cloak. I put myself in a position preemptively to prepare for what was about to happen. So I'm going to get out. I'm going to cloak. I'm going to grab a health pack, and I'm going to allow my teammates to heal each other. So that way I don't hog any of those resources, and they don't really need me. They can rely on just keeping each other up during this moment and not have to worry about me. And now I'm going to come back in and re-engage and try and apply pressure onto those squishy heroes, right? Right there. I recognize that I don't have enough to close the gap on the Luna to kill her. Anything, if I tried to, I would just end up dying, which wouldn't benefit my team. I'd waste the res from the rocket res, and I don't want to do that either. I saw Doctor Strange there. I'm not going in for that. That is not a kill that I can secure. That is not a position I want to be in. Like, the enemy team used a lot of ults and applied a lot of pressure. You can see they used everything except for Doctor Strange ult so far. They're using a lot of ultimates and applying a lot of pressure. So I'm just using my basic abilities to play back and sort of give up space temporarily so I can engage back in when it's a bit safer. Because in that situation, with Luna being too far away and Strange being on me, there's nothing I can confidently do that I could feel like I could secure a kill and get out. Because remember, I'm thinking of my exit strategy too. I'm not just thinking, how can I secure the kill? It's, how can I secure the kill and get out and, continue on to the next fight, right? So here I get out. I recognize that the fight is basically over. And I've just been telling my teammates, like, hey, just die, reset. We'll get them in the next fight. We already got it up to 99%. We don't need to do more. Here's something I do too, that I mentioned in my staggering video that I do a lot. Doctor Strange is wanting to pressure me, right? I already know that I'm half his health and he's coming at me. I rotate around so I can dash and go through him to cause damage, but also put myself into a safer position rather than just using my dash just anywhere to go through or try and get away and cloak in the middle of nowhere. I'm trying to rearrange myself and think ahead of like, okay, where do I need to be and where do I want to be and how can I use my abilities in a way that I get the maximum value out of it, which is causing damage as well as forcing him like when I walk behind him or walk one way and dash through him and cloak, he's got a 180 to turn around and by that time I'm invis. It's going to be much harder to track me that way. So right here, my team is doing that thing where we're like staggering like crazy. Like we should have just died sooner because the fight was clearly over, right? Here, watch. See how I miss my shots and I make a mistake? I'm out. Just like capitalizing on when enemies make a mistake, recognizing when you make your own and it's not a clean kill, you just get out, reset, and try again. That's much, high elo gameplay a lot of times isn't players playing perfectly. It's players knowing when they've made a mistake and when it's better to try and re-engage versus just having like perfect aim. My aim isn't also super great. I'm not the best at aiming in any game, but my decision making has helped me get me to where I'm at, I believe. So here I can't see Bucky's health because I'm a DPS, so I didn't know that I took that health pack and I just killed him there. That's actually my fault. Okay, but right here, once again, Namor is flanking. He's been doing it all game. He hasn't learned his lesson. It was effective the first round. He thinks it's going to be effective later, but I have then read him and realized what I need to do to counter him. So here I am now, basically trying to think of like, okay, what do? I see him, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to force that bubble. Namor has one defensive ability which keeps him alive. If I pop that bubble, he doesn't have anything to save himself. So here he ends up getting popped so fast he's not prepared to use the bubble. And something I've learned from playing Tracer and Overwatch is that a lot of times with your defensive abilities, you want to use them when you think you might die, not when you're sure you're about to die. Don't try to use it as a reaction. Use it as a prediction. Like if you start taking damage and you're worried even the slightest bit that there might be some burst coming out, it's sometimes better to use it to stay alive than it is to, in this instance, like he did, die with it up. Because I know that he hadn't used it yet. I know that there was no reason to, so he had it up. He just failed to use it in time. But here's the thing. I recognize that Namor was out of position. He was isolated by himself. People weren't paying attention to him, and he wasn't getting any backup. So here, Bucky is standing the infinite ammo. I have my ultimate. I know that he wants to stay in that area, which means that it is free pickings for me. Even if all I did was basically aim for him to kill him, and that's worth, right? Using an ult once again to kill one person, absolutely worth it. Because now this fight, I believe, is a 5v4, almost 6v4, because I know that we lost the Bucky in the beginning. That was my fault once again. But now Luna used her ult, wasn't able to save the Bucky, so we have this huge advantage, right? And you see how like once I got my kill and I was starting to get focused by the Venom with the Luna ult up, I got out and I left. I don't need to make a mistake by staying there longer without any of my abilities. I don't have an ultimate. I don't have cloak. I had one shift in the pocket and that was it. So I immediately escaped to high ground, which is harder for them to reach, and I am out of that fight. So here, now Rocket uses the amplifier, and now it's just cleanup. Because like once I got those kills, once I got those picks, I took out resources, I forced ultimates, I took away a lot of what the enemy team could have used to play offensively, and then I left. I did my job. And now after doing my job, it's up to my team to follow up on that and see that like, oh, our Psylocke just ulted and killed like, 2 people. We need to engage now. Like now that she's done the work and helped us give us an open opportunity to attack, now it's our job to follow up on the fact that they don't have a defensive ultimate and they're down by 2 people and we need to push in. And that's exactly what they did. And right here, I know it's overtime. He's basically the only one here, and it's just cleanup. This is what I mean by recognizing and playing around when you see an enemy make a mistake and when you see yourself make a mistake and doing your best to avoid dying in those situations. Uh, in these hero-based shooters, a lot of it is managing your sort of cooldowns and your resources properly, and knowing how to take resources away from the enemy and then use that as your advantage. And a lot of times, what people seem to misunderstand is that being going for kills and dying, they sometimes think is worth it, but really it's not. Like if you can stay alive and pull resources out of an enemy but not die, even if you don't necessarily secure the kills, if you're pulling out a lot of those resources, a lot of those cooldowns, but you stay alive, that means that the rest of your team can then make plays. For instance, if a tank player absorbs, what's a good example here? Uh, if a tank player like Magneto is able to absorb the right click from Namor and the abilities from Bucky, that means that those two DPS heroes don't have those same abilities to use on a squishy hero, right? They sunk all of those resources into a tank who then gets to basically just heal up from that and play back and play defensively while after taking all that damage. But now, if I, as Psylocke, go in and engage on either one of them, they don't have those resources to defend themselves. This is what I mean by sometimes it's better just to stay alive, pull out multiple resources, and let your team use that as an advantage to be able to push forward. This is why surviving is so important in these games. Like, being alive matters so much more than just trying to go for kills, because of the fact that every single time that uh, someone dies, they pulled out resources one time, right? Like if you die in this game, you pulled out resources one time, and if your team doesn't capitalize on that moment specifically, uh, your death was for nothing. Whereas if you're alive and you pull out resources and you back up and you go back in and you pull out resources and you back up, then you pull out the resources multiple times, 2 or 3 times in, like, one life, and then it gives your team more opportunities in which that they can attack, in which they can do something. So, when you're playing this game, it's a lot of, like, resource management, and a lot of that resource management comes down to pulling those resources and playing around your team and spotting those mistakes, and, similar to Overwatch, uh, a lot of these heroes have very specific abilities that, like, keep them alive, like Namor with his bubble, or Psylocke with her stealth. If she doesn't have stealth and she has limited dashes, she's very easy to kill. Kind of like when I was talking about how, like, when I uh, dash and I ultimate in, uh, as soon as that ultimate is done, I have another dash to get out. There's a lot of Psylocke players where I used to do this in the beginning too. I would double dash in ultimate, and then I'm like, oh crap, I don't have a way to get out of here. That's a mistake, right? Recognizing what each hero has in their kit and when they're vulnerable is extremely beneficial to you. And knowing, yeah, having that massive knowledge also of like many different heroes, like whether you play them or test them in the practice range, it's good to have those knowledge of all of the different heroes so you can recognize when they're weakest, when they're most vulnerable. Uh, it makes it much easier when you've played all of the roles and more heroes, so you have a better understanding of them, so you know how to play against them and when they're weakest because of the fact that uh, there's usually one specific resource that's more valuable to them than the others. But anyway, that's what it means to uh, spot mistakes in Marvel Rivals and what you're sort of looking for. And remember, like high elo players, it's not about just uh, good reaction, good aim, anything like that. That was always something too with Overwatch that was the same way. People think that like if you get to high elo, it's because you have a incredible aim. It's like your aim is good in high elo for sure, but you saw there, I missed a lot of shots. I made a lot of mistakes. But the difference was I recognized how quickly I made a mistake and I didn't give the enemy an opportunity to punish me for it. Whereas I would recognize when the enemy would make a mistake and I would punish them for it faster. That's the key to climbing. That's the key to getting better is being able to recognize your mistakes faster and the enemy's mistakes faster, because ultimately that's what will help you rank up. Because at the end of the day, no matter what, even when you group with friends, uh, your deaths, your kills, your play, whether or not you rank up is going to be determined based off of like what you can do. So always be trying to think to yourself of like, oh, okay, like if I died, what could I have done to avoid that situation? What did I do in that? What can I do next time to avoid dying and stay alive? And when you're stress testing things, like what's a good example of something I've tested that just did not work out? There's been a few different heroes that I've tried alting. Oh, like Black Panther. I've tried to alt Black Panther solo before. Not a great idea. He kind of just gets out every time. And after I stress test that a couple of times, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. It doesn't work. However, I did learn that if Storm alts my backline and I alt at the same time, I just kill her. So sometimes you stress test things and they just work out. But don't be afraid to experiment like that, and don't be afraid to just like use like for instance, I use Psylocke alt as a defensive alt all the time. If Bucky alts my backline, I alt him. Like you don't need a Luna alt or a Cloak alt to stop him or shut him down. You can just kill him. But it's recognizing situations like that where you're like, oh, I didn't know that could work that way. And then also at the same time, you learn situations where you're like, oh, you know what? That kills me a bunch of times. I'm not going to do that anymore. So yeah, look at your play style that way. You can always watch your replays or just practice in the moment. The best way to learn is just to hop into comp and stress test things out. And if you lose games trying things, don't worry about it. Like it's not about those individual games. Over time, as you learn more and more, you will rank up. But I always say that like it's better to stress test things because sometimes you discover new things that even streamers or other people haven't figured out, that'll help you rank up. So don't be afraid to experiment and you know uh, try to use your abilities or ultimates in unique ways that people haven't thought of yet. Because at the end of the day, it's just a video game, right? It doesn't. It's supposed to be just for fun. So have fun with it, and yeah, good luck with your ranking up. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, then maybe I'll make some more tips and tricks videos for Marvel Rivals. Anyway, good luck out there.